Hello, so the MH3 full card image gallery is out now, which means it's time for players like me to tell you what the best cards are and get them horribly wrong, so in 3 months from now you can all come back to this video and comment, "Oh my goodness, you were so stupid, how could you not realize this was broken?" So I'm excited for that. But no, jokes aside, I'm gonna go through some of the comments here. I'll put them on screen as I'm talking about them, and I'm gonna rank them all, see what I think is good. Merely just so I can go back and look at it myself, see how my card evaluation is, and we'll see where we are in maybe a couple weeks from now. So I don't want to delay or anything. Let's get straight into it. The first one is a super interesting card. It is Siege Smash. It is a instant for 1 and a red. It has Split Second, which is pretty insane to see on a common. So a card with Split Second, when it's on the stack, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. So it's kind of like uncounterable, but it stops your opponent like doing anything at all. You can't like you wouldn't be able to activate Crit Rats in response, basically, for example. So the modes on this thing, it's a modal spell, has choose one, destroy target artifact, or target creature gets +3/+2 and gains trample until the end of turn. Now, the +3/+2 is probably not very relevant for most decks, especially with Split Second. It's just kind of like a cool combat trick, I guess. Seems like a limited thing. But the destroy target artifact is really interesting on Split Second. Where it seems like it would be best is in decks that really lose to Grave Hate, that really want to destroy like relics, and they want to destroy like Nio Spell Bombs, Tormod's Crypt, all that sort of stuff, where you can target their thing to blow it up and they can't activate it in response to kill your graveyard. So that's kind of a cool use case. And there's a little bit of discussion about in Mogwarts, for example, where you can cast this Siege Smash, and because sacrificing your Putrid Goblin to Skirk Prospector is a mana ability, you can actually make infinite mana with this on the stack, and your opponents cannot do anything in response, which is a cool use case, but I think it's very niche, and I don't think it's going to come up that often. You kind of have to have already resolved first day, got everything into play, and then, you know. So it's an interesting one. Overall, though, I think the card has some interesting applications in decks that want to dodge Grave Hate and want to blow them up at instant speed and avoid the things like Relic and stuff. But again, your opponents can start to play around it by playing Relic and immediately cracking it to kind of play around it that way. So it's got some interesting counterplay. I expect it to see play in sideboards probably, but not like be crazy good. So this is the first solid B tier of the tier list. So on to the next one. Accursed Marauder is 1 and a black for a 2/1 creature zombie warrior that is kind of like a fleshbag marauder. So when it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a non-token creature. This is quite cool, obviously. A non-token creature is a really cool piece of text to see on a common, but I don't know where this fits. It seems like it could do stuff, but I don't know if it fits anywhere. Like, Gardens doesn't want this because it's a creature, it doesn't sack tokens, so you can't sack your own tokens to keep it alive, so it's kind of just worse than Tithing Blade, which leaves something behind. Yeah, I'm not sure on this card. It could definitely be good. It's better Fleshbag Marauder. But at the same time, there's some times where your opponent's going to have a Sacred Cat token, you want to make them sacrifice it or something. But it seems okay. It might find a home somewhere, maybe in one of the lower tier decks, but I'm not expecting it to make bigger moves, so I'm going to put that into C tier, I think. The next card is a 4-mana 3/3, so not a good start. It is Aerie Auxilary. So for 3 white, for a 3/3 flyer, you get a bird soldier that when it enters the battlefield, support 2. So you get to put a +1 counter on up to 2 other creatures. Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is very playable. I'm just going to put this into D tier. It's just a sort of inefficient creature, really. Aether Spike. It's for 1 and a blue. It's an instant that says choose target spell. You get 2 energy. Then you may pay any amount of energy, counter that spell unless its controller pays 1 for each energy paid this way. This could obviously be decent if the energy payoffs or the energy creators were quite good. I imagine this being like a good way to kind of have like a mana leak counterspell kind of thing, but only for, you know, multi-killer decks. Otherwise, you would just play counterspell. But I don't think the energy generators are very good. I'm not seeing many that are worth running over just other cards. So I'm going to put this one into D tier. I don't think the card is that good. This is going to be a controversial placement for sure. Basking Broodscale is a 1 and a green for a creature Eldrazi Lizard. It is a 2/2. It is devoid, so it counts as colorless. and it has the ability that whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put onto the Broodscale, you can make a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn token with sacrifice creature, add colorless. It also has 1 on the green to adapt 1, which will let you put a counter onto it if it has no counters. So, this card combos with another card that I'll put on the screen called Sadistic Glee, which, if any creature dies, will basically let you make infinite colorless mana and also make an infinitely large creature. Now, I play as part of a team, Too Many Cooks. We have a little testing group. We've tested this card a little bit. I'm not entirely impressed by this card. I think the shell is quite clunky. You're in black and green. Black and green is not known for its kind of like, you know, black is very good. Green is not a great color in Pauper a lot of the time. It's interesting. The shell can be good, I think. There's a chance that it could be good, but I'm not convinced that the combo is strong enough, and I don't know if this card is going to be good at all either. So for now, it's a hesitant C tier, maybe B tier. I'm going to put it above the Marauder, the Fleshbag Marauder, but I'm going to put it, yeah, probably below quite a few of the cards in the C tier, maybe. Not convinced by it. So the next card I've got here, it looks like my order's a little bit messed up, is Colossal Dreadmask. Now, this needs no introduction, it just goes into Dreadmaw tier, but just so you can see what the card does, it's, you pay the same cost as Colossal Dreadmaw, you get a 0/0 Black Phyrexian Germ and equip this to it, and it essentially turns it into a Colossal Dreadmaw. This is, in my opinion, well, it's pretty obviously just a better Colossal Dreadmaw, but being black is cool because it doesn't die to stuff out is something that's interesting. You know, you can re-equip it to other creatures, but yeah, you know, 6 mana for this effect, not amazing. Please don't tell the card market YouTube guys, I'd be very sad. You know, I just don't think this card is going to be good enough, unfortunately. Next card I've got on here is Breathe Your Last. It's 1 black, destroy target creature or planeswalker, you gain 1 life each of its colors. This is just going to be D tier. It's probably worse than even the bird. Like, we just have too much efficient removal in Pauper, especially in black, for this to ever really see any play, unless by some miracle some 5-color creature becomes really common and gaining that 5 life is super important, but I just don't see that happening kind of ever really. So next card is Conduit Goblin. It's cost borrow, so red-white, for a Goblin Warrior 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 1 energy, and if you do, another target creature gets +1/+0 and gains haste. And this is a cool little guy. It's definitely better than the bird. It's definitely worse than the Fleshbag Marauder. The colors, you know, make it awkward in an aggressive deck, in Pauper at least. It doesn't pump your whole team. If it pumped your whole team, it would be awesome, but it just doesn't. So I think it goes in C tier below the Fleshbag. In fact, I don't even think this has a home. I don't think it will see play. I'm going to demote him down to the top of D tier for now. Sorry, fella. Let's go on to the next one. So, I'm really, really excited for this next card. These are a cycle of 10 different lands. The one I'll put on the screen is Contaminated Landscape. So, they tap for 1 colorless, or you can tap to sacrifice them, search your library for 1 of 3 different types of basics and put it onto the battlefield tapped. So it's kind of like a fetch land for 3 different colors, but you can only get basics, obviously. And they also have cycling for the color pair too. So for each of the wedges and shards, there's one of these. So Contaminated Landscape is the Esper one. I think Tranquil Landscape is like the Bant one. These are really cool. I actually think these are going to be some of the best cards, actually, and they should be really cheap and easy to pick up. The reason I think these are good is in blue decks, right? You want to cast Brainstorm, you want to cast Ponder. If you've seen any Legacy gameplay, you know just how insanely good casting Brainstorm and then being able to fetch away the bad cards from the top of your library is. I expect these to see play in quite a few different things, maybe like fairies, Demir fairies. I think familiars will definitely play some. You might even see core gates play some. I'm not sure, but I think these can be really powerful tools to improve the quality of other cards, whilst also just being really versatile. The best part of this is, like, if you don't need the colored mana right now, you can play this, hold up the sacrifice activation until it's good. You can use the colorless mana, which is something amazing, like playing this on turn 2, hold up Spellstutter Sprite on your opponent's turn. If they don't do anything, you can go and get your basic. I just think these are very good. These are going to S tier. These are first S tier card for me. Alright, the next one, we've got another Devoid creature here. It's 3 and a blue for a Devoid Eldrazi Shapeshifter that has the ability, as Corrupted Shapeshifter enters the battlefield, it becomes your choice of a 3/3 creature with flying, a 2/5 creature with vigilance, or a 0/12 defender. 4 mana is like a lot for any of these things. I mean, we have a 4 mana 3/3 with upside already in D tier, so there's that. I mean, this is like flexible, right? It can do a lot of stuff, but at 4 mana, I just don't think it will see any play at all. I'll put it below the Hawk, but above the Aether Spike or whatever it's called. All right, next card is going to be an absolute banger, I think. This is Cranial Ram. It costs black, red, so Rakdos for an artifact equipment. It has living weapon, so it'll make that germ token attach itself to it, and it has the dreaded text of equipped creature gets +X/+1, where X is the number of artifacts you control, and it can re-equip to other stuff for 2 mana. This is really, I've got a whole, I've got a short out talking about this. I know a lot of people on Twitter have gone crazy. Gavin Verhey is asking if this card should be pre-banned because it's so similar to a card already on the ban list. This is obviously an S tier card. I think it's going to be really, really strong. I can imagine this seeing play in all different sorts of shells. I imagine people will try it in aggressive Rakdos decks, grindy mid-range decks, a bunch of different stuff. Yeah, Affinity is going to be good, it seems. I mean, who knew? It always is, right? So let's move on to the next card. Cyclops Superconductor costs 1 blue-red for a Cyclops Wizard, which is, wizard type is maybe relevant. It has prowess, and when it enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy. And whenever it dies, you may pay 3 energy, and when you do, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. This is like a cool card. I don't think it will see any play. It's, it's niche. Yeah, I think it's just kind of like a cool card. It kind of makes itself better. It gives itself the energy to activate itself when it dies. You can, cast spells, prowess, swing in. If they block it, you can shoot them in the face anyway. It's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. But for 3 mana, it's kind of awkward in Pauper, right? If for 3 mana you want your creatures to be quite strong or doing something kind of to give you card advantage a lot of the time. So I think for me this is worse than the Fleshbag Marauder card, but probably better than most of the cards in D tier, because this might see like really fringe play in some sort of brew, sort of low tier deck maybe. Alright, so the next card is a blue spell. It is a sorcery, and it is called Deem Inferior. So another 4 mana card, so not already starting kind of awkwardly. Costs 3 and a blue. Has the ability, the spell costs 1 less to cast for each card you've drawn this turn, so maybe a little bit better. The owner of target non-land permanent puts it into their library, second from the top or the bottom. So this is kind of like a Condemn, or like it tucks things, kind of like a Teferi effect in some of the formats. Hard to evaluate this card. The first thing that stands out to me is that it is sorcery speed. Sorcery speed kills it quite hard for me, I think. But there's a lot of ways to make this 1 mana. Brainstorm, for example, makes it 1 mana. On your turn, you've always drawn at least 1 card, right? So this is actually technically just a 3 mana spell. Any cantrip can make it a 2 mana spell. And at 2 mana, it's a little more reasonable, but you're not getting rid of the creature permanently. And like cards like Snap exist, so they don't put them in the library, obviously, they put them back into hand, but yeah, like Snap untapping lands is really powerful. If this was an instant, I think it could see more play, because being able to like put stuff into your opponent's deck as they go to shuffle and things might be better, but I think the mana cost is a little too high, and the cost reduction is like fine, but not being able to cast it on your opponent's turn is quite rough, I think. So I think it will see fringe play more than the Cyclops, less than the Marauder, so it's going to go into C tier for me. Next card has really weird art. It's really funny art. It's called Dog Umbra. It costs 1 and a white for a flashing aura. So it has, as long as any other player controls the enchanted creature, that creature can't attack or block. Otherwise, the Dog Umbra has Umbra armor, which means if it would, your creature would be destroyed, the enchantment is destroyed instead. So it's like a flexible card. It's like a flash pacifism that can also be a flash protection spell. I think people might be sleeping on this card a little bit. Pacifism's not a great card, but the fact that it can double down as protection or protect your creature, that's a really interesting effect. We don't have many cards like it. I'm going to be a little controversial thing. I'm going to put this into... I'm going to put this... Ooh, where am I going to put this? I'm going to put this in B tier below the Siege Smash. I think it's better than... I just think it's better than the Broodscale. I think it has more cool applications and use cases than the Broodscale. Alright, next card is Dreamdrinker Vampire. It is 1 and a black for a vampire, obviously. It is a 2/1 with lifelink. And it has Adapt, much like the Broodscale for 1, same cost. Whenever 1 or more plus and plus counters are put onto it, it gains Menace until the end of turn. This is just solid D tier. You know what? I'm gonna adjust my list slightly. I'm gonna move some cards around actually. Yeah, I think I like this better actually. I'm gonna put B tier cards that I think we'll see kind of play. That we'll see, you know, some play maybe in some decks. C for like fringe or like weird play, and then D tier I just don't think are gonna be playable cards. I just don't think a 2/1 lifelink with Menace that can grow is that good. If it was a 1/3, you know, that I'd be more interested. Like, I feel like 1/3 is a really good stat line in Pauper. 2/1 is just kind of dies to everything. A Stiff Breeze, like, you can't attack a 3 with an Inspector. It's kind of awkward. I'm not a big fan of this card. Next card is Drossclaw. 1 and a black for an artifact equipment. It has Living Weapon. It gives the equipped creature +1/+1. And whenever the equipped creature attacks, each opponent loses 2 life, and it can equip for 2. I would love to just compare this to Cranial Ram, right? I think it's fine. It's probably better than these things. It's not amazing though. I put it into the C tier. You know, it's nice to have artifacts that you can kind of reuse. Like, these living weapon creatures are good because when they die, you can just move on to something else. But the effect isn't, like, particularly powerful. So, I don't think it will see much play, unfortunately. The next card is pretty cool. It is Drownyard Lurker. 7 mana, 7/7 with Vigilance. When you cast or cycle it, you get to make a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn token. And it has cycling for 2 and a blue. These are interesting. Like, Monstertron is not really a great deck, but I think this is going to be above the Marauder for me. I think it could see some play in like a stompy creature Tron list. In blue, maybe less so, but I believe this is a cycle of creatures that are similar to this. I'm not too sure on that. You might have to correct me, but you know, 7 mana, 7/7 Vigilance, solid. You get to cycle it, and it also makes a creature. It's not bad. It also makes sack fodder for itself in case you get edicted. Yeah, it's probably fine. It's probably fine. I think some people will try it. I don't know if it will be good. Next card is Eldrazi Repurposer, 2 and a green for a 3/3. When you cast a spell, when Eldrazi Repurposer dies, make a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn with sacrifice it, add a colorless. Okay. So this is kind of like a 3 mana version of Nest Invader. I don't hate this. Like, it's probably fine for like a green stompy deck, maybe. I'm gonna put it below the Marauder. It's just like a fine card. It might see some play. Not too sure. Next one is Electrozoa. 2 and a blue. Flash 3/1 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. At the beginning of a pre-combat main phase, tap it unless you pay an energy. It's just D tier, I think. Like, below the Hawk. It kills itself. Wow, it basically removes itself after 2 turns. I don't think this is good. Eviscerator's Insight is a 1 and a black for an instant. Literally has the famed ability of, as an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice an artifact or creature, draw 2 cards. There's a lot of cards like this now, but it has the upside of having flashback. I think shells that want to grind games out with like Lembas or Ica Wellspring packages, where they would be running Deadly Dispute anyway, are gonna love this card. This is a really good grindy card. It's good at making card advantage. If you flash it back, it's actually even better card advantage sometimes than a lot of the other draw spells. For 2 man, like the Deadly Dispute man, the cards. I think this is much better than the Siege Smash. I don't think it's as good as the new lands, but I think it's a lot better than everything else below it that we've seen by quite a significant margin. The next card is Evolution Witness, 2 and a green for a 2/1 Elf Shaman Mutant. Has Adapt 2 for 1 and a green. And whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put onto it, you can return a target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. I really like this card. I think I overvalue it because it's just such an awesome value piece. Obviously, green isn't a great color, but this can work with a lot of stuff. Looping permanence is a really interesting effect. There's a lot of ways you can kind of like go off it, like and make an infinite combo with this card. With the Broodscale and Sadistic Glee, for example, once you get infinite colorless, there's a lot of cool looping you can do from the graveyard to try and like loop your entire graveyard, draw your entire deck sort of thing. Yeah, it's definitely super interesting. I'm going to put it above the Siege Smash. Maybe that's just personal preference. I think this can see play and find a home in some sort of deck. I really do. Green has not been amazing, but I would love to see it played somewhere. Let's go on to the next one, Expanding Ooze. 1, a black and a green for an Ooze. It's a 3/3 with Adapt 1, but it costs Golgari to adapt this time. Whenever it attacks, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature that is already modified. This is probably going to see like some fringe play again, like maybe people will try and mess up some sort of like Golgari mid-range with the Broodscale and the Witness or something, but it is kind of just a 3-mana 3/3 that needs to attack, which is better than this Claw, I think, but not better than a 3-mana 3/3 that makes Edict fodder and can ramp you kinda. It's just kind of fine. The next card I was really sad at because when it was spoiled, I thought it was an instant. I thought it was going to be a lot better than it was. So it's 1 and a white for a sorcery called Expel the Unworthy. It has Kicker for 2 and a white, and then you can choose target creature with mana value 3 or less. If this spell was kicked, instead choose any creature. Exile the chosen creature, then its control against life equal to its mana cost. So it's kind of like Swords to Plowshares a little bit, but considerably worse. Sorcery speed makes me feel like, why would you not just play Journey to Nowhere? Obviously, Journey to Nowhere can be blown up, but I just don't, why not just play Journey instead? It's so marginal that it'll get blown up, I think, a lot of times. So probably better than the Claw. It's probably better than the modified buff guy as well, but I don't think it's fantastic, unfortunately. It's like 7 mana to kill 1 Tolarian Terror. It's not very good, is it? The next one is Faithful Watchdog. Now, the art on this card is really cool. It costs Selesnya for a 0/0. It has Vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, it gets 3 +1/+1 counters. And it's in D for dog tier, unfortunately. It's a 2-mana 3/3 with Vigilance. I mean, that's not even terrible in, limited. It's probably really good in limited, but I don't know. It's just a beta in some of the probably one of the worst combinations of colors in Pauper. I just don't think it's going to see much play. The next one is Fanged Flames, 1 and a red for a sorcery that is devoid, so it has no color. That'll be relevant in a moment. Fanged Flames deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exile it instead. So the first thing that is obvious is this hits Guardian of the Guild Pact for 1 less mana than Ghostfire. You lose the instant speed ability of it to do that, but it also can hit more things than Ghostfire can. Ghostfire, if you haven't seen it, is a colorless burn spell like this that can shoot creatures for 3 damage instead. Now, 4 damage is a lot, because that hits things like Avenging Hunter and a couple other cards like Mirror Enforcer that you wouldn't be able to kill otherwise. This is like a really main deckable card in decks like Skred, I think. It's an answer to Guardian of the Guild Pact that a lot of decks have been struggling, that it's also main deckable. That on alone makes me think it's going to be kind of a solid card. So I'm going to put this in A tier above the Evolution Witness. I think it's a pretty reasonable, decent card. The next card is Fetid Gargantua, 4 and a black for a 4/4, not a great rate. Has 2 and a black for Adapt 2. And whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put onto the Gargantua, you may draw 2 cards. If you do, you lose 2 life. I think this is bad, obviously. The cost is so expensive, but maybe it lets you do something interesting in like the in like a counters deck. I mean, we have a lot of counters cards, right? I think it's worse than the Ooze for what it's worth. But maybe not right now. It's expensive, but I could see it being a big mana payoff for a deck where you just make loads of black mana. Maybe in the future, not now. It just doesn't have the pieces. I'm not a massive fan of this card. I think it's kind of mid, unfortunately. Next card is Fowl Strike. It is 1 and a green for an instant that destroys a target creature with flying, so not very relevant in Pauper a lot of the time. It does have Reinforced 2 for 2 and a green, so you can discard it, pay that cost, and put 2+1+ counters into a creature. I mean, it's fine. It's probably like a sideboard card for like a Stompy deck or something. It probably just goes into like... I honestly think it's better than these removal spells and these nonsense creatures. In fact, I'm re-evaluating this. I think this just goes above the rest of these creatures that just kind of don't do much. Nothing much to say about this one. We can move straight on to Galvanic Discharge, which is 1 red for an instant. Choose target creature or planeswalker. You get 3 energy. You may pay any amount of energy and deal that much to that permanent. So it's kind of like a lightning bolt on the base, but you could you could shock something, and the next one you can do 4 damage. It's like fine. It's probably like better than most of these cards here. It might see play as in like a red control deck where you just want to... It's not as good as Skred, obviously, but if you're picking off small creatures and you can take off something big, I don't know. I don't actually think it will see much play, but it seems a lot better than the other cards here. In fact, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I think these cards are getting demoted to C tier. We keep moving things around. Sorry about that. We'll kind of finalize things at the end. Next card is Gifted the Viper, 1 green for an instant that gives a +1/+1 counter, a reach counter, and a death touch counter to a target creature, and you get to untap it. And that's a cool combat trick. It'll be hell to play against this in limited. Like reach, death touch, +1/+1 counter, untap it. That's going to be sneaky. Is it good in Pauper? Probably not. Maybe in like a Stompy deck where you wanna be doing stuff like that anyway. Yeah, not fully sold on it. Probably here in C tier below the Fleshbag Marauder. Seems like the Fleshbag is kind of what a lot of cards are trying to have to get past. The next card is Glimpse the Impossible. It's a 2 red sorcery. 2 and a red sorcery, sorry. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. At the beginning of the next end step, if any of those cards remain exiled, put them into your graveyard, then create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token for each card put into your graveyard this way. Those tokens have sacrifice this creature, add colorless. Now, if you asked me to make this tier list when this card was first officially leaked, I would have said, yeah, this card is cool. This is going to see some play in like the Turbo Initiative decks or the decks that play Namesticker Goblin. Namesticker Goblin is banned now, so this card looks less good. I think it's still decent though in like a big red deck. Maybe like Red Tron really likes this card. My first thought with it before was like Namesticker Goblin, you can play this, keep going off with all your mana that you have. Bushwhacker, you can even use the tokens it makes to play Bushwhacker, and the fact that the cards go into the graveyard is cool. Has a lot of interesting stuff. But yeah, less good now. I would have put it in maybe A tier or the top of B tier if we had the Namesticker Goblin, but for now I think it just goes into the bottom of B tier. The next card is called Gravedig. It's 1 and a black for a sorcery. It is modal. It says choose 1. Target player creates a 2/2 black zombie creature token, or return target card from your graveyard to your hand. It also has Entwine, so basically you can pay 3 colorless and a black to get both of those modes. This is a cool spell. It's modal. It does a little bit of stuff. It's like maybe fine like a graveyard deck. I'm going to put it at the top of C tier. It does some stuff, I think. I actually think this Fleshbag is better than a lot of these cards. I'm going to move these around a little bit. I think I like how that is now. I'm going to move the 7 mana 7/7 up a little bit and kind of balance things out. A lot of cards going to C and D tier. I think that's common with like a lot of these cards. Many of them are not going to be able to break into like constructed formats. That's pretty normal. The next card is Hexgold Slith, 1 and a white for a Slith 2/1. When Hexgold Slith enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. Whenever it attacks, you may pay 2 energy to give it first strike. When it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. It's my first time reading this card. My initial thought is it's probably not very good. It needs to actually attack to get anything going. 2 mana 2/1 is pretty bad as well. Yeah, it feels like obviously the first strike is good, but it needs to actually be connecting to do much. It's probably just slightly below the Fleshbag, maybe. In fact, I think it's probably above the combat trick, but below the other stuff. Horrific Assault is a punch spell, so green, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to a target creature or planeswalker you don't control. If you control an Eldrazi, gain 3 life. This is 1 mana removal for green Stompy decks, which is cool. Which makes me think it's probably better than the Dog Umbra. You know, the decks that want this really want a card like this, I think, so yeah, I can see it seeing some play. I don't know how good it is, but punch spells being 2 mana and this one being 1 is really cool. The difference between 1-cost spells and 2-cost spells is just crazy, right? Like, the difference is monumental. On to the next card. It is a 3 and a red for Infernal Captor, it's called. 3 and a red for a Devil Rogue. It is a 3/3 creature with exploit. So when it enters, you can exploit a creature to gain control of target artifact or creature until the end of turn, untap it, and it gains haste. So it's kind of like a theft effect, like a treasonous act, or act of treason, sorry. This, I mean, again, it's just too much mana to do anything. It's like, okay. But, you know, you can steal artifacts, sack them with Deadly Dispute. You're in the colors for it, but 4 mana is just so much to ask. This was like a 2 mana 2/2 with exploit. Maybe it would be a lot better. I can see that being really cool, where you get to come in and sack like a creature that wants to die or something. But yeah, as is, not good, I don't think. The next is Inspired Inventor, 2 and a white for a 2/2 Human Artificer. When it enters the battlefield, you get to choose one. So you can make 3 energy, put a +1/+1 counter onto a creature, or make a 1/1 servo artifact creature token. Again, this just feels like a generically fine creature. I'm going to put it below the other one. Inventor's Axe, 1 red. Artifact equipment with flash. When it enters, you get 2 energy, and when it enters, you also get to attach it to a creature. The equipped creature gets +2/+0, and it also has equip at instant speed, I believe. For no, it does not have equip at instant speed. It has equip pay 2 energy, so you can only equip this by paying 2 energy. Wow. Yeah, this card's terrible. I think this card is maybe one of the worst ones we've seen. I mean, the flash is cool, but yeah, I don't think this is good. It doesn't seem good to me. Maybe like people would try it in some like red aggressive deck, but my initial thought is that this is not good. The next card costs 1 white. It's called Jolted Awake. It's a sorcery. It has the ability, choose up to 1 target artifact or creature in your graveyard. You get 2 energy. Then you may pay any amount of energy equal to that card's mana value, and if you do, return it to the battlefield from the graveyard. It also has cycling for 2. This card seems really good, I think. It might even make other cards here, so like the Galvanizing Blast, or whatever it's called, Galvanic Discharge. You might even make cards like that playable. Like this card in Boros seems really good. Or some deck that's like sacrificing synth, like being able to get synthesizer back from your graveyard. It can get a lot of your like creatures back from the graveyard, like Core Skyfisher and things. Yeah, this card's cool. I like it. I think it could be decent. I think it's better than the Evolution Witness, but worse than the Flame Slash card. The next card is Cami of Jealous Thirst, 2 and a black for a 1/3 Death Touch. Not a bad stat line, but for 3 mana it's a little awkward. You kind of want that to be on 2 mana. Has 4 and a black. Each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. The ability costs 4 and a black less to activate if you've drawn 3 or more cards this turn, but activate this only once each turn. So basically, on your turn, if you've cast a Deadly Dispute or something that lets you draw 2 cards, you get to just drain your opponent for 2, which is really cool. The fact that it can fully reduce that cost on its own is really interesting. The problem is that 3 mana for a 1/3 that doesn't do anything on its own, unless you've already drawn a bunch of cards and spent like 2 mana that turn to do that, is a little bit hard to like justify. It's worse against that. I think it's worse than the Flesh Bag, but it's better than most of the other things in C tier. Like maybe this would be okay in decks that play loads of disputes and stuff, but I'm not sure. Maybe like an Aristocrat's top end card, maybe something like that. The next card is Malevolent Rumble, 1 and a green for a sorcery. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a permanent card from among them into your hand, put the rest into your graveyard, create a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn. Yeah, I like this card. I think it's playable in a couple decks, maybe. Like maybe Boggles will play this. People think this is going to revitalize Tortex. I'm not really sure that that's true. Tortex has a lot of other issues in the deck than just fighting Tortex, but this is a cool dig spell. It can help you look at quite a few cards. You can put things in your graveyard, which is probably something you're going to care about if you're playing this in your deck. Making a spawn as a blocker, Edict Fodder. Yeah, cool. It does a lot of stuff, and it kind of refunds part of the mana. It's kind of like being 1 green. I don't hate this card. It seems pretty decent. The next card is Mandible Kite. I hope I'm saying that right. Plus 1 white for an artifact equipment. It has Living Weapon. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has flying, and it can equip for 4. Again, this just feels like a very fine creature. It's going below the Slith for me. I'm going to move through the next couple a little quickly. Molten Gatekeeper, 2 and a red, artifact creature golem. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. It has unearth a red. Huh. I mean, this is cool in like it's like an impact tremors on a creature, but 3 mana is expensive for a 2/3. Kind of cool that you can sack it to Kuldotha. But the thing is, you kind of want it to be on the battlefield. The thing is, it has like unearth, so it feels like, yeah, this would be really cool with Kuldotha, but it's not the card you would want to sack to it, and Kuldotha can't really play 3 mana cards, so I think it's just fine. I'm going to put it above the Justiciar. The Mandible Kite. That was getting mixed up with Mandible Justiciar, which is a card from All Will Be One, I think. There's Nightshade Dryad is the next card. 1 and a green for a creature Dryad 1/2. It's got Death Touch, and it can tap to add a actual colorless, so like the colorless symbol. Or you can also tap it to make 1 mana of any color. That's cool. 2 mana dork that can be mana fixing or make colorless is pretty interesting. Death Touch is fine, but 2 mana dorks in Pauper don't feel like they're very good. This is like probably worse than, it's probably better than the other like mid-rangey mid creatures, but worse than a lot of the other stuff that, you know, like this can be looped. The kite can be looped. The other one might see playing Stompy and things, and I don't think this will see much play. Nyxborn Hydra is the next one, so I'm going to put it into Nyx tier, obviously, but I'm going to talk about this card a little bit seriously. It is X and a green for an enchantment creature Hydra. It also has Bestow for X green, so essentially that turns it into an aura. It's got Reach and Trample. It enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, and it also says enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on it, and has Reach and Trample. So this is like cool. It's like a really good infinite mana payoff. So like I was thinking like in Wars, maybe Wars combo, this can just be a huge guy you play out when you have loads of mana. But it can also just like be a huge enchantment you put onto your Llanowar Elf and hit your opponent and kill them out of nowhere. Is it actually going to be good? I don't know. I actually think it's fine though. So if I'm being serious, I'm not just going to put it in the Nyx tier because it has my name in it. But I think this can see play. I think people might be undervaluing the fact that this goes into stuff like Wars that just make loads of mana anyway. And you can already find it off of your stuff like, what's it called, like Winding Way and things. I think it might be an interesting, you might only play like 1 or 2 maybe just 1. But I think it has some interesting design space there where it can be used interestingly. We have another Nyx card next. This is Nyxborn Unicorn. 1 and a white for a 2/2. Bestow for 3 and a white, so you can turn into enchantment again. It's got Mentor, so when it attacks, put a +1 counter on a target attacking creature with lesser power. An enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has Mentor. It's like a fine mid-rangey card for draft. I am going to leave this one in Nyx tier though, because I don't think it's very playable. If I was going to put it anywhere, I'd probably put it above the Slith, but yeah, not too good. The next card is Obstinate Gargoyle. It's 1 white and a black for an artifact creature gargoyle. It's a 2/2. It has text. Whenever it has flying, so long as it's modified, and it has persist. Persist is a funky keyword that lets you do some nonsense. But a 3 mana 2/2 is fine. Like it's like kind of fine because when it dies, it will become a 1/1 flyer. But this just feels like a solid draft card and not a very good constructed card. I'll put it down here. It gets to go above the mana dork because it's an artifact, and artifacts in Pauper are broken. The next card is 4 and a blue, Petrifying Meddler, Devoid, 4/5 with Reach. When you cast a spell, tap up to 1 target creature and put a stun counter on it. It's just too expensive to see play. I don't even know if Monstertron would want this. We'll put it here. The next card is Refurbished Familiar, 3 and a black for a 2/1. It has Affinity for Artifacts. Affinity for Artifacts mention this card is probably going to be broken. Let's read what it does. It's a flying 2/1 for basically 1 black mana, let's be realistic. That when it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent who can't, you draw a card. I'm going to be controversial. I think this is better than the Cranial Ram. I think this card is going to be insane. I think it's not going to get banned because it doesn't look like scary and it's a card that isn't going to look broken. I think this card is really, really, really good. Like a 1 mana 2/1 that is black, doesn't die to snuff out, that can make your opponent discard a card and if they don't have any cards, which is a lot of the problem with these like discard cards, you get to draw a card. In grindy mid-rangey decks like Grixis Affinity and things that are already like happy to just whittle your opponent's resources down, this just feels like a slam dunk. This card can go into so many different decks, like, and it doesn't even need to do like anything crazy. You just put it in there. It's a 1 mana efficient creature that discards a card or draws you a card. Just put it in there. It's free. Like the Ram, you have to build around it, and it's kind of slow compared to Glitters and Cranial Plating, which are the two cards Bandit's similar to. This just feels really good. Like maybe I'm like losing my mind, but I think this little rat is like fucking brilliant. I think we're gonna see this rat in a lot of decks, like Mardu, maybe even some sort of Rakdos deck. Like I think it just goes into loads of stuff. It seems really good. So yeah, hyped about this card. I want to get 4. I want to play them and everything. It seems really cool. Upside because it's a rat too. Best creature type. Alright, let's move on to a less good card. This is Retrofitted Transmogrant, black mana for a 1/1 artifact creature zombie. You can pay 3 of black to return it from the graveyard to the battlefield, tapped with 2+++ counters. This card's fine. It does some stuff. I think it's better. If I put it better than the Broodscale, people are going to be mad. I'm going to put it at the bottom of B tier. In fact, I'm going to move the Flesh Bag up to B tier and move this to the top of C tier instead. I can see this going to like a really grindy deck. I've seen so M has been playing it's called Persistent Specimen, I think. So there's a similar sort of thing to this, but this is an artifact which is maybe relevant, and you know, it comes back and be bigger. It's a recursive body in grindy decks. Yeah, maybe it's fine. I don't know. Seems okay. Next card is Riddlegate Gargoyle, white-blue for a 2/2 flyer. It's an artifact creature. When it enters, you get 3 energy, and when you attack, you may pay 2 energy, and when you do, target creature you control gets lifelink. This is a draft card. It's going with the other draft gold cards. I'm not sure that it will see much play. On to the next card. It's 5 mana, so pretty unlikely to see any play at all. 4 and a white, Vigilance 3/4. When it enters, you get to look at the top 6 cards of your library, reveal an artifact or enchantment from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom, and if you didn't do this, it gets a counter. Yeah, it's just like D tier, I think. I'll put it above the dog. You know what? Even the dog is better than this. It's 5 mana to like draw 1 card and make a 3/4. I think that's not good. The next card is Sage of the Unknowable, 1 and a blue for a 0/4 blue mana dog that can add to play colorless, but they can only use the colorless to play colorless spells or activate an ability. Yeah, like this is whatever. I'm going to put it next to the other mana dog. I'm going to put it above it because it's in blue and it's a 0/4, so it blocks everything. Wait, the other one has Death Touch. Wait, no, it's worse than the other one. Okay. Into the last set of cards then, we've got Sapadian. I think that's how you say that. Sapadian Simulacrum. It's a 1/1 with haste for 1 red, artifact creature goblin. You can also pay 3 and a red, sacrifice it to deal 4 damage to target creature. Huh. 4 damage to target creature. That's cool. I don't know, maybe I'm biased. I've seen like I played like Familiars a lot, and the red decks really struggle to deal with cards like Godpharaoh's Faithful, and you know, it gains life when you cast spells. I can see this being a cool Dotha sideboard card. Like it has haste on a goblin, that's like fine. It's an artifact, that's cool, but when it gets to like remove stuff in the late game, but it's like 4 mana to do that though. Kind of talking myself down a bit of a winding path here. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure. I don't know. Now that I think about it more, the fact that the activated ability to deal 4 damage to a creature is 4 mana and not like 2 or maybe even 3, kind of kills it for me. I'm going to put it at the top of C tier. It's close though. That was like a 1 mana 1/1 with haste that could for like 2 mana shoot something for 4. I think it would be a lot better. Okay, on to the next card. It is 3 and a black for a Human Knight Rogue. It is a 2/3 with menace. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, it connives. This card is really a shame to me. If this was like a 2 mana like 2/2 or like a 2 mana 1/1 with that ability, I feel like this could be okay actually. But 4 mana is so like far away from where you want to be that it's just down here, I think. The next one is Serum Visionary. It's a 3 mana 2/2 for a Vidalcan Wizard. Costs 2 and a blue. When it enters, you get to draw a card and scry 2, so it lets you cast Serum Vision. It's pretty cool. Seagate Oracle is a good card. That card sees play. Like, this card is not terrible, but the problem is with this card is that it's just kind of worse than Seagate Oracle. You see less cards, and you see the card. Well, you see the same amount of cards, but you see the cards after you've drawn, which is, you know, a lot worse. So put it above the Flesh Bag. Maybe I'm gonna put it above Glimpse, even the Broodscale, but I think it's worse than Seagate. The next card is super weird. It is a legendary creature. It is the only legendary creature from this, and it's one of the only legendary commons that have been printed since Homelands, I think. It costs 4 red for Skoa, Ember Mage. It's for a 4/4. So 6 mana 4/4. When it enters, it deals 4 damage to any target. And it also has Grandeur, so you can discard additional copies of it and sacrifice 2 mountains to shoot anything for 4 damage. So that's essentially like a Fire Blast by discarding extra copies. The problem is, why would you want to play this in a red deck in Pauper? It's 6 mana, you're playing Synth. It's just terrible. This could maybe go into control decks that want to just have like a Flame Tongue Kavu and like loop it and shoot stuff. But the fact that they're printing legendaries at common is kind of gross to me, and I think that this is really unplayable in every deck, so it's going at the bottom of D tier for me. I think it's one of the worst cards in the set, just out of principle for it being a legendary, and also the fact that it's uncastable and pretty terrible in any of the decks that would want to actually get that effect. The next card is Smelted Charge Book, 1 on a red for a 1/3 with Menace. It's an artifact creature. When it enters, you get 2 energy, and when it attacks, you may pay an energy, and if you do, you give another attacking creature +1/+0 and Menace. This sounds really similar to a card from before, like the, where is it? No, maybe, oh yeah, no, it's the Conduit Goblin. And this one's better than it because it's slightly easier to cast and an artifact, but it's still bad, so it's going down to D tier. Snacking a Void Craw is next. 1 blue-green for a 1/3 Devoid. It taps to add colorless, and you can pay 3 and a colorless to draw a card. If this was like 2 in a blue or 2 in a green, I could see it being played in like a Tron deck, but because it's blue and green in the casting cost, I think it's not good. D tier, below the dog. The next card is Sneaky Snacker, a Dimir 2/1 with flying. This says whenever you draw your 3rd card in a turn, return Sneaky Snacker from your graveyard to the battlefield, tapped. Pretty cool. It's also a fairy, which could be relevant for like Spellstutter Sprite. But Sneaky Stacker is a cool card. It's a build around. I think it goes into Terra really well. The main thing is that with Brainstorm, you get to draw 3 off of that, right? That triggers on its own. Deep Analysis also gets to draw 2 and then basically trigger this on its own because you've already drawn 1 card for turn. So I actually think Sneaky Stacker will be a big part of the meta game, but probably only if Cranial Ram gets banned. A really funny interaction that I can imagine seeing a lot in like future Pauper is my opponent plays a refurbished familiar, the 2/1 flyer that discards, and my opponent, and then someone will discard the snacker to it. I imagine that being a pretty common play pattern coming up. But I think this card is really good. It seems like it can go into quite a few different shells, like a mid-rangey blue-black deck, or like Terra, just a turbo Dimir Terra deck. Pretty cool, yeah, I like this card a lot. The next card I don't like it pretty much at all. It's a 2 and a white for a 2/3 that enters to give you 2 energy. You can pay an energy to tap a creature. Yeah, this is just bad. Like, it's going here. Temperamental Oozewag, 3 and a green for a 4/4. Modified creatures you control have Trample, 2 and a green, Adapt 2. Yeah, it's probably maybe fine, like a Stompy deck. I'm going to put it below the Swords to Plowshares clone. Going to run through quite a few of these last ones. We've got, I'm going to move this one to the bottom as well. We've got Tempest Harvester, 1 blue, enters the battlefield, get 2 energy, tap, pay an energy, draw a card, discard a card. Yeah, sure, it's fine, bottom of C tier. Thriving Skyclaw, 2 red for a 3/2 flyer. It gives you 3 energy on ETB. When it attacks, you may pay 3 energy, put some counter on it. Sure, it's fine, bottom of C tier. 2 in the narrative, 1 blue, instant, draw a card, you get 2 energy. Sure, that's like fine, top of C tier, sure. Unfathomable Truths, 4 and a blue, instant, devoid. Draw 3 cards and create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifices creature, add colors. Actually, maybe fine, playable in Tron, sure, it goes into the top of C tier. Utter insignificance. 1 on the blue. It's a flash enchantment that enchants a creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and has base power, toughness 1/1. 2 in a white. 2 in a colorless. Exile enchanted creature. This card does not seem good. Bottom of C. Actually, you know what? I can go with the other like mid removal spells. Void Pouncer, 1 on a red for a 3/1. Devoid with Kicker for 2 and a colorless. If it was kicked, it comes in with 2 +++ counters and a trample counter. This is bad. Bottom of C tier. Warped Tusker, 7 mana, 6/8 with reach. When you cast or cycle it, you get to make a 0/1 spawn. With cycling for 2 and a green. Yeah, this is like going the same place as the other one was. Where's that here? Similar to the blue one. Seems like blue and green are like the devoid colors. Wing It is a 1 and a white for a instant that gives a creature +2/+2 and gives it flying. Oh, you put a flying counter on it, scry 1. Sure, it's like fine. It's gonna go here, I guess, below the removal, like the bad removal spells. Wither and Bloom, instant for 1 and a black. Target creature gets -3/-3 until the end of turn, and you can play 1 and a black to exile it from your graveyard and put a +++ counter on a creature you control. I actually like this card. I'll put it into B tier below the Dog Umbra actually. Has cool applications with Crypt Rats, like it can be a removal spell that can get you Crypt Rats so it can blow up lots of small stuff. 3 toughness is a pretty common stat line in Pauper, like that's kind of where you want to be able to be. You want to be able to hit things through 3 toughness, and it can work really cool with some of these other cards like Broodscale and Witness. Maybe it'll do something, I'm not too sure, but I kind of like it. Next card is 2 red-green for a Devoid, 2/3. When you cast it, you get to make 2 Scions, and it has reach, and whenever you sacrifice another Eldrazi, it gets a +++ counter. Hello, Stompy. Yeah, this is just a Stompy card. I think it's probably better than the Broodscale, but not by much. I mean, just because it goes into Stompy. And the final card that I kind of skipped before, so we can have a banger at the end, is Thraben Charm. This is a 1 and a white for an instant. It deals damage equal to twice the number of creatures you control to target creature, or destroys an enchantment, or it can exile any number of target players' graveyards. Top of A tier. I think this card's really solid. It's really flexible. It reminds me of Dawnbringer Cleric, but being a removal spell sometimes is pretty cool. I think decks like Corgates will like this. Maybe White Weenie might like it. I'm not too sure, but seems good. And I think this is basically the tier list. Do I want to move anything around? I do unironically think the Familiar is better than Cranial Ram, even though Cranial Ram is probably the more bannable card, if that makes sense, because of the play patterns it kind of makes. I think the stacker is about the same as the land. You could probably put the stacker here because it's more of a build around the land to kind of, you know, they sit in the background and do good stuff. Thraben Charm, the Deadly Dispute, the Flame Slash, the Loop Spell, yeah, that's fine. I'm going to be more reasonable here. I'm going to move these cards into the top of B tier. So the Nyxborn Hydra, Witness. I think the split second one probably is going to be better than these two. I'm going to move them around actually. The Fight spell, Dog Umbra, another removal spell, and then I'm actually going to move these down to C tier. I think the Broodscale is a meme. I think people are going to really enjoy cooking with it for a little while. I even think this is C tier, and this. Yeah, but I think unfortunately it's a bit of a meme. Yeah, I think this is my final tier list. I'm excited to see if anything that I kind of missed or like put down here in like the middling or bad tiers is actually going to turn out to be really strong. I'd love to be surprised. I think like when cards kind of shock you and become really good and you completely miss them, I find that really interesting, really fun. It's like nice to kind of learn. But we'll see how it pans out. We'll see if any of these cards at the top are played. We'll see if any of these ones at the bottom are not played. And yeah, thank you for watching.